Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this presentation. In this essay I'd like to talk about the amount of money and the amount of resources and employees and staff numbers overall that are amongst our universities and who are dedicated to DEI, ESG, climate activism, activism of all sorts, Black Lives Matter activism, and so on. Now, you'd think that there'd be one or two, a few here or there, but in a university of say 50,000 odd students and say 8 to 9,000, depending on the university, 8 to 9,000 employees, you can have easily 1,000 to 1,200, if not 1,500 people who are employed specifically to activism. They're not actually employees, they're not lecturers, they're not administrators that are processing student loans or any sort of administrative documentation. They are straight out activists. They are paid by the university and in effect by the taxpayer or donors like the George Soroses and so on. They are being paid to be full-time activists, indoctrinators, propagandists, agitators, shit stirrers, and so on. So that's their job. They don't actually have a job that has any meaning or use in the economy. Their job is to spread globalization and to destroy Western society so that the globalization project can be put in place. Now, the numbers here are quite staggering. What got me onto this first off was that there was one of the large NGOs that masquerades as a charity, but they're nothing more than a globalist activist group. They were there was an article saying one of the heavies from the NGO was saying how many of their employees actually are embedded in the universities, and I was quite surprised. And wow, so they see the universities as a capturing point. To grab the minds of young students. Now we also, and there are two factors at play here. One is the mass embedding of activists into the universities, but the universities are complying with it, and state governments, regional governments, federal governments, local governments are also all going along with this as well. Imagine you've got a school and someone says, well, look, we're going to set up, we're going to have a few hundred activists coming at your school, and they're going to advocate for nuclear war, so something like that. And so they're going to be, and they'll be on the payroll there. We want you to give them offices and space. They have 100% access to all students at any time. And that's what we want. Oh, yeah, okay, no, that's a good idea. Wow, yeah, hey, why didn't I think of that? That's what's happening, though. There's these radical activists who are actually being given office space. Now, I want you to, here's just one job. This is a job it's a 3-day-a-week job, okay, for someone working for an NGO embedded in the university to be able to go and get a crowd. Their job is to be able to quickly pull a crowd onto the street, placard waving, chanting, righteous indignation, screams of victimhood, to get that crowd onto the street quickly, give it the impression of grassroots. That's their job. So they've got an office in the university, they've got special parking spots and parking areas, they're given access to all the university resources, student lists, everything is right there at their fingertips. Now that job, 3 days a week, by the way, that job pays 3.5 times the average wage of the nation. So for 3.5 times the average wage, a 3-day-a-week job. So that's paying, if you sort of extend that out to say a 5-day-a-week job, then it's paying more than 5 times the average wage, and yet their only job is to put a crowd on the street waving placards. They produce nothing, create nothing, deliver nothing, build nothing. Their only job, and they're paid handsomely for it, is to destroy Western society and to break it down, to create social conflict, to create social tension where there is none. So they have to invent it all. Now, if you look at the amount of people that are involved in this, the numbers are quite staggering. And if you add the number of NGO activists, United Nations activists. There's a whole fucking range of activists that are inserted into the university. And I'm turning just to look at some numbers here, so it may change the volume. So between 8 and 9% of the staff of the university, of universities, I looked at a number of them here, are DEI and ESG employees. So they're diversity officers and environmental officers, all sorts of things like that, paid for by the taxpayer or, again, embedded from the NGO. This number, 8 to 9% of the total staff, again, in a university of approximately 50,000 students, this is somewhere in the region of 1,000 university employees. Now, sometimes they're given administrative jobs, or the title is administrative job, when they're in fact an activist and a rabid activist. Their role is to stir up and to agitate and to for example, a number of social media officers, yes, they call them student contact officers and things like that. But they're there to spread stories. Did you know what Trump did? And Hitler was seen on campus only yesterday. And that's their job, to stir this up. There's going to be a talk given by such and such a conservative politician with known associations to the far right. And then this is used as so get out, students. You get out and you make sure that meeting doesn't make complaints. Here's where you make the complaints to. Here's the letter to make and this is so it's all very organised, and there's a whole infrastructure to help these students. Now, there's a second element to this. It used to be universities were a place for merit only. Sure, the wastrel son of the super rich guy could get in there, but aside from that, it was merit only. The brightest kids in the nation, as reflected through pass or fail exams, were going to university. That's all changed. People that wouldn't have even made it through junior high school 30 years ago are now being passed through, waved through into university. So you're looking at some very low IQ people who have been, and because they're low IQ, it's not because you're low IQ, you're not achieving it. It's not because you're lazy and stupid. It's none of those things. It's because of the patriarchy. It's because of Hitler. And so they're filled with these notions of victimhood. So they get to the university and they're prime fodder for these activists to go after and say that the world's a terrible place because of Nazis. And they go down like sacks of shit for that sort of narrative. So not only are there vast numbers of agitators and activists and stirrers and troublemakers, such as diversity officers and so on, but they're also have got a vast number of very malleable, very simple-minded, easily led, easily deceived students that hitherto didn't exist, and that needs to be. But I crunched some numbers here. For this is one university in North America, and these numbers hold good. For one diversity, the whole number of diversity and ESG employees, which again is nearly 1,000 employees out of 8,000 or so total number of staff that are there. That 8,000 including lecturers and administrative staff. The average expenditure on these activists is, in terms of the budget divided by the number of people, is about $135,000 per person. Now, when you apply those same numbers, or the same mathematics rather, on ratio to the total budget for teaching and the total number of teaching or academic staff, then they're paid just under $100,000. Now, they may get external grants and things like that, I understand, but nonetheless, it means that if you're a diversity officer stirring up anger and hatred and spreading propaganda in the university, it's likely you're going to be paid more than the guy who's teaching engineering, lecturing in engineering. It's insane, but that's the upside down world that we're living at the moment. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.